The increasing size of enemy submarines, the strength of their construction, point to the inescapable conclusion that in spite of all our efforts, it seems impossible to provide an effective rejoinder to it.
While British shipping declined, the number of German U-boats doubled. In 1916, 95 had been built, and only 25 had been sunk.
The size of our home fleets is still insufficient. We have nearly reached the limit of immediate production in the matter of capital ships. We have not got nearly enough destroyers for escort and anti-submarine work.
With the submarine apparently invincible, the importance of producing food from British farms increased. Yet, Lord Lansdowne pointed out,
the President of the Board of Agriculture reports that there is a world's deficit in breadstuffs, that the price of bread is likely to go higher, that there has been a general failure of the potato crop, that there is considerable difficulty in regard to the supply of feeding stuffs, that the difficulties of cultivation steadily increase, that land is likely to go derelict, the yield to decline, and the number of livestock to diminish greatly. That the supply of fish is expected to be 64% below the normal. The financial burden which we have already accumulated is almost incalculable. We are adding to it at the rate of over £5 million per day. Generations will have to come and go before the country recovers from the financial ruin and the destruction of the means of production which are taking place. All this it is no doubt our duty to bear, but only if it can be shown that the sacrifice will have its reward. The responsibility of those who needlessly prolong such a war is not less than that of those who needlessly provoke it.
Lansdowne's memorandum was a secret document, but reports in every newspaper in 1916 hinted unmistakably at failure, disappointment, at sacrifice without reward. On Easter Sunday, revolution exploded in the graceful streets of Dublin, centre of English rule in Ireland since the Middle Ages. 1,500 men of the Sinn Féin party seized the General Post Office building, turned it into a stronghold, and proclaimed a Republic of Ireland. In 2 days, British troops crushed the rebellion with ruthless force. An uneasy tranquility was restored. The citizens of Dublin came out of shelter and wandered round their city, surveying the wreckage with a kind of bewildered unbelief. The rising had been the work of extremists, men like those who had killed the Archduke Ferdinand at Sarajevo. Moderate Irishmen stood aside. Thousands of Irish soldiers were fighting as volunteers in the British army. The British took this for granted, but they saw the Easter Rebellion as treachery at a moment when the United Kingdom was battling for its very life. In the next 10 days, tension grew afresh in Ireland as the British executed 15 of the captured rebel leaders. Every shot resounded across Ireland, across the Atlantic Ocean, to the Irishmen in America. Every shot created another martyr in Ireland's long struggle for nationhood. After the executions, the British Army in Ireland was seen, even by moderates, as an occupation force. The homely man in khaki became a symbol of foreign oppression. British bitterness against the Irish rebels was reflected by the great crowds outside the Old Bailey during the treason trial of Sir Roger Casement, the prisoner in the Tower. Casement was an Irish patriot captured on the eve of the rising after landing from a German U-boat. He was eventually executed more than 3 months after the Easter Rebellion. During all this time, blazing indignation at Britain's actions swept the Irish community in America. Their millions of votes were a factor in the American presidential election in the autumn. There were those who feared, like Lloyd George, that the British victory in Ireland might be bought at an appalling price.
The Irish-American vote will go over to the German side. Unless something is done, even provisionally, to satisfy America, the Germans will break our blockade and force on us an ignominious peace.
Lloyd George proposed immediate Home Rule, but the blood of the martyrs prevented any peaceful solution in Ireland. The extremists did not want compromise. They wanted total and unconditional victory. Every belligerent sought that elusive prize. On June the 3rd, the most discouraging news of the war glared from the headlines of British newspapers. The British Grand Fleet had at last encountered the German High Seas Fleet off Jutland, and apparently had had the worst of the battle. Was this possible?
They fired the first shot, and it went just over the Princess Royal, about 50 yards. I said at the director gunner, I says, "Course, that was a good shot, wasn't it?" I says, he says, "Yeah, it was." So it evidently had got a good range.
The battle cruiser Indefatigable was the first to blow up because of a flash down into the magazine from a German shell.
It was a terrific explosion. The guns went up in the air just like matchsticks, 12-inch guns they were. And she began to settle down. And without half a minute, she was gone.
20 minutes later, the Queen Mary followed, and another ship's company paid with their lives for the inferiority of British design and material. Yet a third British battle cruiser was similarly destroyed when the main fleets came into action.
When I saw the Invincible after the explosion, she was just, to me, one flaming letter V. She went down, broken clean asunder in the midships, and she was exactly like that, just a letter V. Well, of course, after that, there was other ships had already gone, many crippled. And when we steamed through the patch, the main patch, there was the men on rafts, bits of wood, bravely cheering, waving, and there was a smell of cordite, smell of gas from shells, and also burnt bodies.
The Germans were first to issue a communique, which was quoted in newspapers throughout the world.
Our High Seas Fleet encountered on May the 31st the main part of the English fighting fleet, which was considerably superior to our own forces. During the afternoon, a series of engagements developed between the Skagerrak and the Horn Reef, which was successful for us and which continued during the whole of the night.
The British communique did not state whether the Admiralty considered the Battle of Jutland a victory or a defeat. The newspapers drew the inevitable conclusion. The Times said,
"It is clear that we have suffered the heaviest damage at sea we have met during the war."
The British were stunned. The Navy was their deepest pride. 4 centuries of decisive victory lay behind the Royal Navy. In 1916, the British people expected no less. Instead, Germany's navy had had the best of an indecisive battle. German ships had proved stronger, more deadly fighting machines. Nevertheless, the German fleet had run back to port. An American newspaper noted,
"The German fleet has assaulted its jailer and is still in jail."
Hard on the heels of Jutland came more news of tragic loss at sea. Lord Kitchener was dead. drowned in the cruiser Hampshire on